He stepped on stage when most were already calling it quits, turned muscle into art, and made his mark without needing to be the biggest. Being unforgettable was enough. A legend of the golden era, who brought together discipline, presence, and passion like no one else. Go ahead and hit that like button to support the channel. Now we're ready. Grab your pre-workout and let's relive an era where elegance and power ruled the stage. Because this story deserves to be told down to the very last pose. Ed Corney was born on November 9th, 1933, in Honolulu, Hawaii. From a young age, he was all about physical activity. Growing up surrounded by nature and constant movement, he was into sports like volleyball, surfing, and canoeing. He was a ball of energy, and his competitive drive showed in everything he did. His connection to the ocean and sports helped shape not only his body, but also the determined character that would one day make him a legend. At 14, Ed got introduced to judo thanks to a friend who invited him to train at a local dojo. What started as simple curiosity turned into passion. In just 4 years, he earned his black belt, a huge achievement for someone so young. On the mat, he learned key lessons in patience, focus, and self-control, traits that would later play a big role in his bodybuilding career. But Ed was still far from the stage. During his younger years, bodybuilding wasn't even on his radar. In fact, he had no idea he'd ever compete at all. His life took a different direction. In 1950, at 17, he joined the U.S. Coast Guard. He served for 4 years in New York, where the strict military routine only reinforced his discipline and mental toughness. After his service, Ed decided it was time for a change and moved to California. There, he worked as a radio mechanic at airports, mostly around Oakland. That's when life started dropping the first hints of the path he'd eventually follow in bodybuilding. He wasn't lifting weights yet, but he was already paying attention to and admiring those with more developed physiques. The turning point came unexpectedly during a volleyball match. Ed's team, made up of athletic Hawaiian guys, went up against a group of bodybuilders. To his surprise, the bodybuilders were fast, agile, and coordinated, nothing like the clumsy stereotype he had in mind. Losing that match made him curious. How could these huge guys move so effortlessly? One of the players, Millard Williamson, stood out even more. With an incredible physique and solid skills, he instantly became an inspiration to Ed. Millard explained that weight training didn't slow people down. It actually boosted coordination and agility. That conversation lit a spark in Ed's mind. He started thinking, what if I trained like that too? After that eye-opening volleyball match, Ed couldn't get the image of those bodybuilders out of his head. They didn't just play well, they looked the part. Sculpted muscles, confident posture, and a powerful presence on the court. Millard noticed Ed's interest and encouraged him to check out a gym and try lifting. He said weight training was the fastest and most effective way to boost both performance and appearance. For Ed, that was a light bulb moment. It all clicked. So, without really knowing what he was doing, he took the first step and walked into a gym for the very first time. In the beginning, his training was all over the place. No plan, no real technique. He was just copying what he saw others do. But even with that messy start, results came fast. Ed had something rare, a genetic gift for building muscle. Even without proper guidance, his body responded with visible gains. And that just fueled his motivation even more. Little by little, he started learning. He watched the more experienced lifters, read bodybuilding magazines, and tried different training methods. With every workout, it became clearer this was the right path. For Ed, lifting weights wasn't just physical exercise. It was a tool for transformation for both body and mind. He started training seriously, sticking to a disciplined routine. Funny enough, even as his progress skyrocketed, Ed still wasn't thinking about competing. For him, bodybuilding was about becoming better, stronger, more focused, healthier. But everyone around him could already see it, the potential of a future champion. His friends and gym buddies kept encouraging him to step on stage, but he wasn't quite ready. He just needed that final push. And that's something a lot of us can relate to. How many times do we have a talent or opportunity right in front of us, but we're not seeing the full picture yet? That's exactly where Ed was, training out of pure passion, unaware that the stage was already calling his name. Ed Corney's turning point came in the most unexpected way. At 33 years old, after years of training on his own and watching the results take shape in the mirror, a friend invited him to compete in a local bodybuilding show. The event was the 1967 Mr. Fremont, held in California. Even though he had never stepped on stage before, Ed accepted the challenge. And what was supposed to be just an experience ended up being the start of something life-changing. Weighing around 160 pounds, roughly 72 kilograms, he entered the competition with the mindset of a rookie, but the physique of a seasoned pro. And he shocked everyone. He won on his very first try. That victory was the final sign he needed. Right there, under the stage lights, he realized he had found his place. The crowd's energy, the judges' recognition, and the thrill of showing off a physique he'd sculpted through sheer dedication made him fall in love with the competitive side of bodybuilding. The following year, in 1968, Ed decided to go all in. He entered more contests and racked up a series of important wins, taking home titles like Mr. Heart of California, Mr. Northern California, and Mr. Golden West. In no time, he was already considered one of the most promising names on the West Coast scene. His posing style stood out for its grace and muscle control, something rare on stage back then. What's even more impressive is that all of this happened after he turned 30, an age when a lot of athletes are already thinking about retirement. Corney shattered that idea. He proved that age doesn't define your limits. With focus, discipline, and serious training, he reached levels that many younger guys couldn't even touch. His story still inspires anyone who thinks it's too late to start. But is it really? After dominating the local scene, Ed set his sights higher. Starting in 1970, he began competing in the most prestigious bodybuilding contests in the world. And he didn't just show up, he won. Within a few years, he had established himself as one of the top athletes in the International Federation of Bodybuilding, IFBB, going head-to-head with legends and showing he belonged among the best. His standout year was 1972, when he won two of the sport's most coveted titles, Mr. America and Mr. Universe. That last one, in particular, was held in Baghdad, Iraq, and became one of the most iconic performances of his career. Corney wowed the judges with his flawless physique and polished posing routine, gaining international attention. And he didn't stop there. In 1973 and 1974, he claimed back-to-back Mr. World titles, cementing his place among the elite. Every time Ed stepped on stage, it was a show. While others relied purely on mass, Ed separated himself through quality, symmetry, and sheer elegance. Sure, people admired his body, but what really elevated him was the control, charisma, and flow he brought to the performance. In 1975, Ed reached the peak of his career by competing in the Mr. Olympia, the most prestigious bodybuilding competition in the world, and secured second place in the lightweight division. Considering the insanely high level of competition, that result was a massive achievement. Even among the very best, he stood out. But more than the trophies, he was building something even bigger, a legacy. Over the course of his career, Ed competed in more than 49 shows and walked away with at least 12 major titles. That's no small feat. Staying focused, in shape, and consistent for that long is something only a few athletes ever pull off. Ed made it look effortless. But if you've ever heard him speak in interviews, you know every victory came through grit and relentless hard work. His rise also mirrored the growth of bodybuilding itself. As the sport gained visibility throughout the 70s, names like Ed Corney brought legitimacy and a touch of beauty to the stage. He wasn't just strong. He was graceful, precise, and deeply inspiring. He was proof that bodybuilding could be both art and athleticism. When people think of bodybuilding, they often picture just muscle and size. But Ed Corney showed there's so much more to it. He turned the act of posing into something meaningful, almost spiritual. For Ed, every routine was a full-on performance where the body told a story. It was like the stage was his sacred space, and every move a kind of prayer. While other athletes hit their poses like robots, Ed moved with grace and precision. His transitions were smooth, captivating, and left both judges and fans in awe. He wasn't just showing muscles. He was expressing emotion through his body. That's why he earned a nickname that would define him, the Master of Posing. His style became the gold standard for generations to come. The moment that cemented his legend came in 1977 with the release of the documentary Pumping Iron. In one unforgettable scene, Ed is training alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger. Right after finishing a brutal squat session, he flows straight into a posing routine with absolute mastery. Arnold, clearly impressed, drops a line that fans still quote to this day. Now that's what I call posing. That line didn't just sum up Corney's talent. It was a turning point in how posing was seen in bodybuilding. Before that, the artistic side of presentation barely got attention. But after Corney, everything changed. He proved that it's not enough to have muscle. You've got to know how to showcase it with style and intention. His image landed on the cover of the Pumping Iron book and all over the movie's promotional posters, taking his name worldwide. From that moment on, Ed Corney became the embodiment of poise, control, and stage presence. Countless athletes began studying his routines, trying to replicate that magic. But few ever came close. What about you? Have you ever seen a posing routine that genuinely moved you? Ever thought about how a single gesture can turn muscle into art? Ed Corney did that effortlessly. He wasn't just strong, he was an artist. And that's why to this day, he's remembered as the greatest poser in bodybuilding history. But Ed Corney wasn't just an artist on stage. He was a workhorse behind the scenes. His training was intense, disciplined, and grounded in consistency, not shortcuts. He trained 6 days a week with a strict muscle group split. Every body part had its own day, and nothing was done halfway. That kind of commitment was what gave him such harmony and proportion in his physique. He focused on free weights and compound lifts. While others chased modern machines, Corney stuck with the basics: squats, bench press, deadlifts. He believed real results came from fundamental movements, the ones that hit multiple muscle groups and demand raw strength. If you've ever gone heavy on these lifts, you know just how transformative they can be. Interestingly, Corney didn't do cardio for most of his career. He felt that weight training, paired with a dialed-in diet, was all he needed to stay lean and conditioned. It wasn't until later in life that he added cardio, as age started demanding some adjustments. Still, he never gave up the weights. That's where he felt most alive. What really stood out was his instinctive approach to training. Ed didn't count reps or stick to fixed sets. He listened to his body and trained based on how things felt. He called it the muscle feeling, a deep connection to the movement. If the muscle was still firing, he kept going. If it was time to stop, he stopped. And it worked. That method might sound strange if you're glued to spreadsheets, but Ed Corney showed that body awareness is a powerful tool. He never trained on autopilot. Every set, every rep was done with complete focus. It wasn't about how much, it was about how well. And maybe that's why his physique looked so sculpted without needing to go overboard. So what about you? Have you ever tried training by really listening to your body? Have you paid attention to the signals your muscles are sending? Sometimes we chase complicated routines when the real secret might be something simpler: training with intention, focus, and passion. Ed Corney proved that can make all the difference. If training was the hammer that sculpted Ed Corney's body, nutrition was the cement that held it all together. He knew that without a solid dietary foundation, no physique would last. During contest prep, his meals were dialed in with surgical precision. Nothing was random. Every bite had a purpose. For Ed, nutrition wasn't a burden. It was fuel and strategy. His diet was simple, but seriously effective. He consumed about 200 grams of protein per day from sources like chicken, lean beef, and eggs. Carbs were also part of the plan, around 150 grams daily. But in the final weeks leading up to a show, he'd cut them completely to reach peak definition. That kind of discipline took serious emotional control and laser focus. Corney's food choices were clean and whole. No ultra-processed junk, no fast food, no unnecessary indulgences. He prioritized leafy greens, clean protein, and home-cooked meals. His goal was to keep his body lean, free from bloating and inflammation, and always ready to perform at its best. This was nutrition with one goal: results. He also used a few key supplements. Back in the day, there weren't nearly as many options as we have now, so Ed stuck to the essentials: multivitamins, kelp, BCAAs, desiccated liver, and minerals. It may sound basic today, but back then, that was cutting edge. And more than that, it matched his style. No fluff, just what worked. Ed never fell for trendy diets or miracle tricks. He knew your physique is built on consistency, not shortcuts. His nutrition followed the same principles as his training. Trust the process and listen to your body. And that approach worked. Year after year, he stepped on stage looking razor sharp and stage ready. Have you ever stopped to think about how your diet affects your results? Have you tried building a meal plan around simple, consistent foods instead of chasing risky shortcuts? What Ed Corney teaches us is that mastering the basics is still the safest, most reliable path to success. It's not about magic, it's about method. After decades of dominating the stage and building a one-of-a-kind legacy, Ed Corney decided to take a step back from competition. Many assumed he'd retired, and honestly, it made sense. But what no one saw coming was his massive return in the 1990s. Well into his 60s, Ed came back swinging, proving that the love for bodybuilding doesn't age. In 1994, at 61 years old, he stepped back on stage to compete in the Masters Olympia, a division for veteran athletes. And he stunned everyone. He won the 60-plus category. The following year, he did it again, showing that it wasn't luck, it was mastery. Even among other seasoned legends, he stood out with his flawless posture, sculpted physique, and of course, his signature posing. In 1997, going up against younger and younger competition, Ed still managed to claim second place in the 60-plus division. And in 1998, at 65 years old, he competed at the prestigious Arnold Classic, the only year the event featured a Masters category. Just stepping on that stage at one of the world's biggest shows was already a victory. But Ed wasn't there just to show up. He came to impress, and he absolutely did. What stood out most about his comeback wasn't just the physique, it was the technical mastery. Corney knew how to use every angle to his advantage. His maturity added depth to his performances. He wasn't competing on size. He competed on aesthetics, on stage presence, on posing precision, the very things he had always championed. His return inspired an entire generation of athletes and fans. He proved that age isn't a limit. It's just another chapter, with new challenges and new victories. Ed showed that commitment to health, discipline in training, and love for the sport can keep you thriving for decades. His presence on a master stage was a living reminder that bodybuilding isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So, what do you think? Is age really an excuse to give up on your goals? Have you ever stopped to consider that maybe you're just getting started, even if you've already passed 30, 40, or 60? Ed Corney shows us that time can be your ally, not your enemy. The secret is never losing your fire and continuing to step onto life's stage with pride. After making waves with his incredible wins in 1972, Ed Corney caught the attention not just of fans, but the biggest names in bodybuilding. One of them was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was already rising fast in the sport. Arnold was so impressed that he made a special offer. He wanted Ed to join him at the legendary Gold's Gym in Venice Beach. An invite like that, you don't turn it down. Ed said yes. And what followed was an unforgettable chapter. At Gold's, he trained side by side with Franco Columbu, Frank Zane, and other icons of the Golden Era. The environment was intense, but filled with mutual respect and constant inspiration. It was like the beating heart of the bodybuilding world, where legends crossed paths, learned from each other, and pushed the sport forward. Corney described that time as magical. The sound of weights clanking, the smell of sweat in the air, the total concentration of every athlete. It created a vibe like no other. He said there was no room for distractions, just hardcore training and real connection. It was a laboratory for champions. In his own words, it was a perfect moment in the sport's history, and he was proud to be a part of it. That phase had a deep impact on his career. Beyond refining his technique and conditioning, Corney grew even more as a posing artist. Training alongside Schwarzenegger elevated his profile even further. His image spread across magazines, posters, and events. The world was finally seeing that Ed wasn't just another bodybuilder. He was a symbol of excellence. And his relationship with Arnold went beyond workouts. There was genuine friendship and mutual respect. Schwarzenegger often praised Corney publicly, especially his unmatched posing skills. After Ed's passing, Arnold called him a gem of a human being and one of the greatest posers bodybuilding has ever seen. Words that show the real admiration between two legends. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to train in the same gym as your idols? To live alongside greatness and soak up wisdom straight from the source. Ed lived that dream, but it wasn't luck. He was there because he earned it. His talent and relentless dedication placed him in that elite circle. Ed Corney's journey was full of victories, challenges, and milestones. But the final years of his life revealed something even more admirable: the quiet resilience of a true warrior. In 1999, during a shoulder replacement surgery, he suffered an unexpected heart attack. And as if that weren't enough, he also suffered 2 strokes caused by post-surgery blood thinners. Anyone else might have called it quits right there. But Ed Corney wasn't just anyone. Even after slipping into a coma and facing serious motor challenges, he fought. He got back up. He returned to training. His strength wasn't just physical, it came from deep within. The stage might have been behind him, but the passion for bodybuilding still burned bright. Even the simplest workouts became acts of gratitude and resilience. During this time, many younger athletes still looked up to him. And for good reason. Even with limited mobility, he kept his discipline, his routine, and his champion mindset. Ed never complained. He faced each challenge with calm and kept moving forward. It was like he was always saying, as long as I can move a single muscle, I'll keep training. Sadly, on December 25, 2018, Ed Corney suffered a brain aneurysm. Just a few days later, on January 1st, 2019, he passed away at home in Manteca, California, at the age of 85. The news hit the bodybuilding world hard. Many lost an idol, others lost a friend, but everyone knew one thing for sure: Ed Corney's legacy would live on forever. Right after his passing, Arnold Schwarzenegger paid tribute with a message that perfectly captured what everyone felt. Ed Corney was a gem of a person, one of the greatest posers bodybuilding has ever seen. Simple words, but coming from someone who knew Ed closely. A true legend honoring another. And now, let me ask you, have you ever thought about the kind of legacy you want to leave behind? What will people remember about you when your story is told? Ed taught us that beyond the trophies, what really lasts is how we live, with passion, with courage, and with dignity. Ed Corney's name went far beyond the stage. It became an eternal symbol of classic bodybuilding. In 2004, he was officially inducted into the IFBB Hall of Fame, sealing his place among the sport's greatest legends. But truth is, that recognition only made official what fans and athletes already knew. Ed was one of a kind. More than a trophy collector, Ed Corney left behind a legacy of art, elegance, and a deep love for bodybuilding. While many chased size, he pursued expression, harmony, and emotion on stage. To this day, his posing style is studied, admired, and imitated but never duplicated. He raised the bar for what it means to perform with true excellence. Even as one of the greatest lightweight athletes of all time, Ed proved that size and height don't define greatness. What truly matters is presence, dedication, and the ability to inspire others. And in that sense, he was a giant. Every time he stepped into the spotlight, it was a masterclass in poise, control, and respect for the art of bodybuilding. His life taught us that it's never too late to start. That age is just a number. That with dedication, any barrier can be broken. He also taught us that discipline and humility don't just build a strong body. They shape a strong character. Ed Corney was living proof that bodybuilding is not just a science of the body, but also a form of expression that speaks to the soul. Now it's your turn. What impressed you the most about Ed Corney's story? Had you heard of this legend before? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let us know. Do you think posing still gets the recognition it deserves in today's bodybuilding scene? If this video inspired you even a little, hit that like button. It really helps our channel grow. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to do that now and turn on the bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. If you'd like to support our work even more, consider becoming a channel member. The button's right down there. And if you want to keep riding this wave of nostalgia and inspiration, check out the video in the card, where we tell the story of another legend from the golden era. I guarantee you'll be blown away by the history bodybuilding still holds.